Hi everyone, welcome to another race analysis. This is the Oz Cycling Cyclocross National Series. This is round 4 of the series. This is the first race that I have raced in the series, so I'm not really expecting any points, and as you can see I'm at the very back of the lineup. I got literally the last call up. The under-19s got let off just before, and as you can see they absolutely took off. Here we've got the Masters 1 about to go, and then I'm in the fantastic Masters 2 category. Realistically, there's a 2-horse race for the win in this round. Harry Williams in 212 in the Mood kit, and Rob Doyle in 213 in the Orange kit. It's going to be between those two, and the rest of us are going to be fighting over the little places. To be quite honest, going into this, I fully expected to be spat out the back very, very early on. This is cyclocross, and the last couple of cyclocross races that I've done have really shown that I don't have much in the way of skills. I found myself having plenty of power, or at least I thought I did, but really struggling to get around the corners. So, expecting that, I decided I wasn't going to go all ham into the start, and instead I just laid off a bit, waited for everyone else to get ahead, and decided that I'd sit behind them and watch them go through a few corners first. And my expectation was that I'd be pretty much by myself for most of this race, so I might as well get a good view of what's happening ahead of me. Unexpectedly though, when I got to the first corner, instead of just sort of gingerly making my way around it, I found that I was having to slow down to lay off the back of the guys ahead of me. And the other thing I realised is that putting proper tyres on my bike, as in tyres that weren't absolute slicks, fast max of speed terrains, made a huge difference going around the corners. I stuck some Vittoria Terreno mixes, which is a sort of a mixed surface tyre, and the amount of grip that I had in the grass was amazing compared to what I'm used to. And all of a sudden I'm realising that not only am I not getting spat out the back, but I'm actually having quite a bit of fun. So we're about a minute into this race, and already Harry and Rob have a sizable gap on the rest of the field. But what I'm also noticing is that coming into these corners, I'm feeling really comfortable sitting right on the wheel of the guy in front. People are beginning to let gaps open in front of them, but I'm sitting right on. So this is beginning to give me a bit of hope that maybe this race isn't going to be the solo effort off the back that I'm expecting. And also the person that I passed in the first couple of corners, he hasn't overtaken me yet either, which is unexpected. We're coming up to a really cool little feature here. It's not quite fast enough to be a jump, but because of the angle that you come in on, you got to kind of, so that you can make the corner immediately after the rise. This little corner here tricked me up the first time. Just on this corner I went a bit too wide, got my back wheel in the gravel and had a bit of a squirrely moment. But after that I took the corner a bit sharper, turned a bit earlier I guess, and after that I didn't have any issues with it. One thing I really enjoyed on this course was the fact that this course had been used the day before, but in the opposite direction. So a whole bunch of these lines that seem to be cut into the grass a bit make a whole lot more sense if you're watching them, if you're going the other way. Just blazing past me right there was Dave Nan. He was leading the M3 category and just obliterated the field. He had a 3-minute gap at the end of the day over the next person, Tristan Jones. So we're about 5 minutes into this race, and we've just hit a bit of a sandy technical section. And at this point, the gaps have really opened up in front. You can see there's one guy a couple of seconds ahead of me, but then ahead of him there's a big gap. And I thought this was pretty much where the race was going to end up, and I figured I'd be swimming around by myself for the rest of the 45 minutes. Some of these areas I was really ginger through the corners. I had no confidence in the banking, and I had absolutely no confidence in my grip. What happened though is, as I kind of got a bit used to the tyre, this is the first time I've used these tyres ever, and by the time I was sort of a few laps into this race, I was really feeling a lot more comfortable and a lot more confident going through these corners. So you can see I'm squirreling around here, I'm not taking good lines, and the gap's just staying stubbornly ahead. And you can see some people from our grade, already 10, 20, 30 seconds ahead. But then a few minutes later, this happened. This is Luke Marr coming past on my right. Again, he's riding in the Masters 3 category. He ends up coming third in that category, so someone else comes past. Tristan Jones comes past a bit later on and overtakes him. He comes past me, and I decide to stick on his wheel and just sort of watch him through the lines. And so for the next 5 minutes or so, I'm sitting on this guy's wheel, watching every corner he takes and getting a bit of a feel for the course. Now, I haven't seen this course until the race. Like, the practice session that they opened up was 2 or 3 hours before our race, and I hadn't been able to get there in time to do it. And so this is the first time I'm seeing this course, and so every lap I'm getting more and more familiar with it. And so this time, being able to go through it, watching someone's wheel, seeing where they go, seeing how much they can rip it through the corners, really gave me a lot of confidence. And as you can see, I'm riding right up on his wheel, and we're beginning to catch up with the rest of the group in front. And also, the guys at the front, this is now, lap 2 of this race. After an absolutely blistering start, they've slowed down a bit. And that enables me to get back on, and then eventually I can see a whole line of guys. And once we get onto the back of them, I start being able to follow, 3 guys in front. I'm seeing where their wheels are, and I'm realising that I'm actually a lot more comfortable in the corners than I thought I was. You can see in that corner right there, I was rolling right up the back of them. I was pretty heavy on the brakes, but I was braking later. Unfortunately, in that case, I was scrubbing off a bit more speed than they would. I had to punch out of the corners pretty hard. But I was really feeling more comfortable on the course. And what we end up with, as Luke goes past and goes out the front, is 4 guys from our grade. Now, at the moment, this, I think, is positions 4, 5, 6, and 7. It might be 3, 4, 5, and 6. But in any event, it's a bunch of 4 guys from my grade, and the next couple of laps are me just really sitting on them. So we're coming through that sandy technical section again, and this time, instead of making my own lines, I'm watching where the guys ahead of me are going, and you can see them going around the banking, pedaling the whole way through. And I was too nervous to pedal the first time round, but seeing what they were doing, I figured out I could do it, went through pretty confidently, and realised you could make a whole heap of speed by just pedaling through the corners, rising up the banking a bit, and trusting in your grip. I had no confidence in my tyres, I had no confidence in my grip, but seeing these guys doing it, kind of began to pick it up through the race. A little bit. I'm still taking terrible lines at this point, but I get a bit better as we go. So we're now 20 minutes into the race, and I make my first pass of the race, other than that sort of last one at the very beginning. Doesn't last very long, but I do get ahead of Alex. Highlight of the race, I think. As we get through to the start-finish, Lee decides to sit up. He's not interested in sitting on the front anymore. And Alex uses that opportunity to get back in front, and once again we're back to 4. I redeem myself a minute later by attempting a pass over the barriers. Again, I think this is the second time I've made a pass over here. I have a really weird technique for getting back on the bike. Essentially, I put the bike down, start running along beside it, and eventually I decide that I should probably get back on the bike at some point. Usually by that time the people next to me have sort of faffed around with their pedals. I'm 3 or 4 bike lengths in front, still running, and then I hop on and spend the next minute or so trying to get my cleats in. It's not ideal, but it seems to work for me, so we'll keep working on that. At some point I have to go back to trying to get the running mount working, but the last time I tried that, I knackered myself so hard I've got a bit of trauma. We might try it again, we might not. So remembering, of course, that Alex has put himself on the front, he's the guy in the pink, this kind of happens. I wanted to slow this down, call this out, because this is some of the best riding I've ever seen in my life. He comes around the corner, gets the tape tangled up in his back wheel, has a bit of a slip, and somehow or other manages to go around the corner with one hand and 1 foot off the bike. I mean, bucking Broncos aside, that's not how you ride a bike. Anyway, Alex manages to get himself back up. He told me afterwards that he never managed to make it back to the bunch after this. I think he said he got some tape stuck in his wheel, and that was the end of it. Funnily enough, 10 seconds later, this happens. Someone from another grade comes by to pass me. Lee skids to a stop, and I clip his wheel, and that's enough to tip me over. That knocked the wind out of me a little bit, not so much because of the not because of the crash, but because I lost a bit of confidence to sit right up on people's wheels. Okay, so we're about half an hour into this 45-minute race. The group of 4's down to a group of 3. And what I've begun to realise is that I've been sitting on the back of these guys, and I'm not really under as much pressure as I'd expected to be. So coming into every corner, I'm feeling like I'm running up the back of them. And I decided at this point that I might take a lap on the front and see if I can't use some of the confidence that I've got in the corners, maybe to put some pressure on the 2 of them. Now, this isn't actually Alex. He's a guy from the grade, I think, from Masters 3. This is James Kirkham. He's in the same kit as Alex from Mood. But he's a grade above. And anyway, I decided to sit on his wheel, having come past my my compatriots, and once again just see if I can't put a bit of a gap into it. And initially it works. This is about 90 seconds later, and as you can see, I've got maybe 10-15 seconds on the other 2. Unfortunately though, I'm getting tired, and without anyone's line to follow, I'm starting to take really bad lines through some of these corners, and I'm shelling speed. I might have put quite a good gap while I was following this guy up front, but as soon as I sort of lost his wheel, I really lost the plot a little bit. and I really struggled to find those good clean lines through the corners. Didn't do too badly there, but for quite a few of them after this I was just struggling. I went way off to the side there, lost a couple of seconds. Just at this point I'm no idea what I'm doing, and I'm completely losing the plot. Nevertheless, we persevered. I even managed to get back in front of James here. Put my head down for this section before looking up at the last second and realising that I'd completely missed the corner, screeching on the brakes. I think James might have been a bit pissed off with me for slowing him down there. At this point, I'm really enjoying this little whippy section at the back. It's pretty technical, but it felt really good when you could start leaning the bike right over and gripping the tyres in. I think I got it really, really smooth and fast about once in the whole 7 or 8 laps, but it was a good bit of course. Finally, I come through the start-finish line, and it's the bell lap. Probably a pretty good thing. I'm sitting at about 185 beats a minute, and considering that my maximum is probably in the low 190s, I'm absolutely pinging at the moment. Coming into the top bit of the first half, and as you can see, Lee is catching up again. He's now within about 5 seconds of me. A few minutes later, and unfortunately the pressure of Lee sitting behind me and absolute fatigue makes me take a few fairly ordinary lines through here. Lee's absolutely right on my wheel, and within a few moments I think he actually manages to get past me. Again, I'm absolutely at the end of my reserves, so just keeping going at this point. I mean, at the start of this lap at one point I thought that the lights were about to go out. And after another series of shocking corners, one after the other, I think Lee manages to get past me pretty easily. Now this backside of the course is the stickiest, heaviest part of the course. I didn't realise, but it's quite a bit uphill, and at that point Lee just blasts past me. I thought I might be able to stick onto him. I mean, we're within 500 metres of the finish line. I gave it all I got, but just sitting at threshold was absolutely all I could do. And then when I made a few more mistakes through this corner, which I loved this corner so much, and then this time I just sort of started dropping a bit of distance just about through every chicane, and Lee just begins to start opening up a few metres. Fortunately for me, I guess, he didn't realise that I was A, in his grade, or B, hadn't been lapped, and so as we're coming in through to the last couple of corners here, he kind of sits up a little bit. At this stage, as I'm coming around, I'm thinking I might be able to catch up to him and get ahead of him through the sprint. But through this chicane, I just mess it up, don't have the power, and then I bollocks up this last corner as well. And coming out of this chicane, he's probably just got 3 seconds on me, and I don't have anything left to really chase it down here. Anyway, we get onto the tarmac, he gets up to speed, and then he does sit up. And so I give it the beans, figure why not. He thinks I've been lapped, so he's not too worried, and I managed to get past him just after the line. A bit disappointing that I couldn't get right on his wheel, get on terms, and maybe come past him through the finishing straight. But it was a huge amount of fun. So this was a real eye-opener for me. This is the first time I've raced a course like this with tyres that actually suited the course. And I figured every single lap I was learning how to move the bike under me, how to account for grip being a bit variable, and generally have a whole lot more confidence. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you in the next one. Take care for now. Bye.
I'm going to hit the line, but... Yeah, were you in my race? Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. Did we lap you? Huh? Yeah.